Wow. Tim Bradley admits that a fight between Jaron Boots Ennis and Terence Crawford would be a good fight, but he's also saying that Terence Crawford shouldn't fight Jaron Boots Ennis. What? What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Tim Bradley said in a media scrum, quote, Crawford is he's no longer one of those guys who is going to fight for $5 million. He's that guy, $10 to $15 million. So in order for him to do it, it's got to be worth it. Tim Bradley goes on to say, I don't think Jaron Boots Ennis, although it would be a good fight, I got Terence Crawford winning that fight. Will he get paid for it? And that's the thing. Terence has done what he's needed to do to make them know he's the worst man on the planet. He's done what he's needed to do. What more do we need? So now he's in the position where he's well known and people love to see him fight. He needs to take advantage of it, and he needs to get that bag. This is coming from none other than Tim Bradley. Now, I 1000% disagree with what he's saying, and I'm going to explain why. Let's not beat around the bush. First things first, it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out. You're admitting it's a good fight, but then you're saying that he shouldn't take the fight, and then you're bringing up whatever financial demands. But the reality is that doesn't really make sense for a few reasons. For one, this is what I noticed. The favoritism, the biases, and the double standards in boxing oftentimes are outrageous. You have fans and content creators who oftentimes pick and choose when rules should be applied and when they should be omitted from the rule set. And I'll explain. Haven't you noticed that the Canelo fans, the Canelo man fans, the Cinnabons sound very similar to the diehard radical Crawford fans, the Bud Buddies? And I'm going to explain. So when it comes to Canelo, we'll just get to him real quick. Pause. When it comes to Canelo, everybody wants to see the David Benavidez fight, right? Everybody wants to see the David Benavidez fight, and you have Canelo fans who are trying to shoo David Benavidez away, right? And they're saying, oh, what has David Benavidez done? Oh, he beat Caleb Plant after Canelo. You know, who's Andrade? Andrade never beat. And they're finding different ways to minimalize the fight between Canelo versus Benavidez because Benavidez is a sure shot threat and it's a good fight. But knowing if Canelo himself elected to fight against David Benavidez, then they would admit it's a great win. Or if Canelo fought Benavidez and defeated him, they would give Canelo all the accolades and all the credit in the world and tell you how great Canelo is for beating Benavidez. That's how this works. It's like Canelo fans and Jermall Charlo. People wanted, like myself, wanted to see Canelo fight Jermall Charlo. I'm talking about the Jermall Charlo that knocked out Julian J. Rock Williams before anxiety, before family problems, before he only fought one time in 3 years with an undersized Jose Benavidez. I'm talking about old Jermall Charlo, you know, around the Korobov time, before Brandon Adams, you know, these types of fights. The Canelo fans kicked and screamed every step of the way and said, oh, that fight makes no sense. Jermall Charlo, he hasn't done anything. Why should Canelo fight him? Blah, blah, blah. But then if Canelo picks him next, then all of a sudden they'll say it's a great win if Canelo beats him. Now you look at Bud Crawford. The biased Bud buddies, they're telling you that Crawford, he should be demanding, like Tim Bradley just said, Crawford should be looking only at $10 to $15 million purses, and that's where he's at right now as a star. But the thing is, that's not where is that number coming from? Where did you get 10 to 15 million? Crawford versus Errol Spence was thought to be, you know, this generation's Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns or Hagler type of fight, right? And it didn't even break 1 million pay-per-view buys. So who's to say that per the business and per Crawford's previous numbers, because let's be real, Crawford's numbers were even worse before he got with PBC. This is not my opinion. These are the facts. Crawford fought on HBO pay-per-view versus Victor Postal. He fought on top-ranked ESPN pay-per-view versus the likes of Amir Khan and Sean Porter. And all three of those numbers were worse than the Errol Spence number. In fact, you can combine all three of those numbers, and it probably did still less business than the one PBC fight with Errol Spence. But yet and still, the Crawford and Spence Crawford undisputed fight did not even top what Canelo did in his undisputed fight with another Showtime guy at the time, which was Caleb Plant, a PBC fighter. So where is Tim Bradley getting this $10 to $15 million number? Yes, these fighters risk their lives. Yes, Terence Crawford is a talent. Yes, he has skills, but you got to pay like you weigh. I'm from the Bay Area, and we got a saying, pay like you weigh. If your numbers, it's like there's certain people in Hollywood that command a certain salary to be in a movie, right? Man, I won 6 Oscars, or, you know, I'm a decorated actor and sought out veteran or whatever. You know what I mean? To get that person in your movie, it'll likely, unless they're doing a favor, it's going to likely cost you because they have certain purse demands and salary demands, right? Like if you're a Daniel Day-Lewis and you're accomplished, he's not going to just be in any movie. I know he's retired now, but he's an Oscar winner and he's an Oscar nominee and he's been in epic movies. So for him to be in your movie, he has to like the script and he has to be compensated. But that's the reality of any business. The Rock, he's not going to come cheap because, you know, he's The Rock and he's a global brand at this point, right? But Terence Crawford has made poor decisions business-wise throughout his career, and he's off of one win with Errol Spence, which was a great win. You know, I even thought Errol Spence would beat him, so that's a great win. But now you hear the Bud Buddies and, you know, the radical Crawford supporters, they're talking like Crawford is in this new league of stardom, and realistically, he's not. Like I said, he didn't even crack $1 million with Errol Spence in a desired and sought after fight for Undisputed. Like Floyd Mayweather said, he's not a pay-per-view attraction. And people think that this is a diss. We live in such a PC, sensitive, mushy, baby, weakling society where when I say what I say, when I say these things, which are absolutely true, which you can absolutely quantify, which you can absolutely prove, people take it offensively, but men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Crawford has never done over $1 million, you know? Gervonta Davis just recently cracked the $1 million mark with Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia has that, you know what I mean? So we know, I mean, don't even get me started on Canelo. He has a couple fights that have done over $1 million. Crawford has never entered that territory or that space. And then you got guys like Tim Bradley who are saying that he shouldn't be fighting Boots, although he's admitting it's a good fight. He shouldn't fight Boots based on what? Because Crawford wants to cash out and get 10 to 15 million. But the numbers, none of his numbers really equate to we should give you 10 to 15 million. Like, for example, Terence Crawford's own team said they would like to fight Tim Tszyu. Who's to say that PBC or Amazon Prime or the network has $15 million for Crawford to fight Tim Tszyu? You know, you put that fight in Vegas, it's a cool fight. I like the fight in terms of a fight, but does Crawford, is $15 million, like, is that doable for a fight like that? Are they going to re-up? Are they going to have any ROI for Crawford versus Tszyu fight? You know, I really can't say that. So Tim Bradley, once again, sounds way off the mark. Furthermore, you got a lot of fans who all day they scream this, oh, I want the best versus the best. This is about the best versus the best. But then now when it comes to Terence Crawford and Boots, they're just counting him out and saying, oh, he fight. It's always a different thing. So this is really no different than what Canelo fans do for Canelo, because Terence Crawford fans or Crawford or his team, they're saying, oh, Boots is still fighting in small theaters. What does that have to do? We don't care about that. We just want to see you fight him What does his past fights in a small theater have anything to do with that? Because Boots fought on Gervonta Davis's undercard in DC, and that fight broke records. So it's not like he's just fighting in small rooms. And then here's the funny thing. Terence Crawford is saying, oh, Boots fights in these small theaters. What top rank fight since maybe Devin Haney versus Lomachenko has been in the big Madison Square Garden room, right? They just did an O'Shaquie Foster fight yesterday. How many people watched it? What size venue was that in? Teofimo, what venue was he in? Was he in Mandalay Bay selling 6,000 tickets? And Crawford went to that fight, right? So that's not really an excuse to not fight Boots. But again, you see Baldhead Bradley and the Bud Buddies, they're coming up with all these different iterations of reasons of why Boots Ennis is beneath Crawford some kind of way. But what's the difference for Canelo fans doing that to every opponent that is a threat to Canelo Alvarez, like Benavidez or Andrade at a point in time, or Jamal Charlo at a point in time, or Better Biev or Bevo rematch, etc. So it looks bad. And again, these are the people screaming, oh, I want the best versus the best. So you want the best versus the best in boxing, but only when it's convenient. Another thing that's absolutely mind-blowing is Tim Tszyu fighting Keith Thurman, Canelo Alvarez, who Terence Crawford says is a big fight that he wants. Canelo already ruled out, and I made a separate video. Make sure you guys check that video out and subscribe. But Canelo Alvarez already said he's not fighting Crawford because he's 21 pounds lighter. He says all the risk would fall on his shoulders, and he has nothing to really gain because people will say that when he wins, or if he wins, they'll just say that Crawford was way too small. So there's really no point for Canelo to take that fight. And he's right. I mean, you fight a guy 21 pounds lighter, there's only upside for him, but there's really no redeeming quality or upside for you. You just fought a smaller man, and just like the Jermell Charlo fight, and that was only 14 pounds, people aren't going to be impressed and give you a whole bunch of credit for that. So Canelo rules him out. Keith Thurman is booked. Tim Tszyu is booked. Errol Spence may be out with eye injuries, but beyond that, we already seen that fight, and some people said they don't even want to see the rematch. So it looks like all roads should be leading to a Jaron Boots Ennis. What else is out there for Terence Crawford? And then the way Crawford and his team and Tim Bradley are talking, like, oh, Bud, he's done everything and he has no more to do. Shouldn't you retire? If you don't have anything else to prove in your industry, why don't you just retire? That seems like it makes the most sense if you truly feel that way. And the other thing, the last thing I'll say that I despise about commentary like what Tim Bradley just gave is they'll advocate for the fight not to happen and say, oh, the fight shouldn't happen. Crawford should be looking for bigger and better things, and he wants the bag and all this other stuff, right? But then when he in the same breath or the same space, he'll say that Crawford beats Jaron Ennis. Like, no, we're not doing it. How are you going to say the fight shouldn't happen and pretty much try to prevent or put out a sound logic that people can use to prevent the fight from happening, but then in the same breath say that it's a good fight, but then also say that Crawford wins? So you see how people try to hedge their bets? They want to say that Boots would lose to Crawford, but here's why the fight shouldn't happen. But if it did happen, Crawford would win. But we don't want to hear that. Boxing fans want to see it. I don't care about Bradley's interpretation of a hypothetical fight. I want to see an actual end result. In addition, none of these Bud Buddies got mad at Crawford for fighting David Avocado. So David Avocado made all the sense in the world to fight according to Crawford fans, but then Boots Ennis is just out of the question. And again, now we're entering Canelo man fan territory where they say David Benavidez doesn't deserve a Canelo fight, but we sit up here and watch Canelo fight Average Yildirim, or whatever the dude's name is, Avni Yildirim, right? So you were good with the Yildirim and Rocky Fielding fight, but David Benavidez is out of the question. Now you see the Bud Buddies and the bias in boxing, and people like Tim Bradley. That's what they're saying. They're saying just, a year ago or whatnot in December, we had to watch Terence Crawford versus David Avanesian, no problem. But Jaron Boots, Ennis, all that he's doing and, how he's looked, that's beneath Terence Crawford. And then they're talking all this bag talk. Oh, Crawford wants this amount of money, this amount of money. But when I'm talking about the same people, the same critics. When Floyd Money Mayweather talk about money, they hate him. Oh, why is he always talking about money? When Gervonta Davis posts a money picture on the table, they say, oh, who cares? Money doesn't buy you respect and all this type of stuff. But then they're okay with Crawford and Tim Bradley saying, oh, Crawford needs the bag. Crawford needs the bag. Crawford's getting the bag with David Avocado. Now it's bag talk. Man, come on. You come straight out of a comic book.